So for this activity, I'll be talking about the decree number 262/2011, which is part of the Fundamental Education Law in Honduras. The decree itself is part of what is known as the fundamental law that exercises all educational activities and the applicable legal responsibilities and consequences within the national territory by foreigners or nationals in correspondence with the Honduran Constitution. There is no difference between the public and private schools here. They are all under the authority of the Ministry of Education. They periodically, usually about once or twice a quarter, because we work in quarters, come in and make sure that we're in compliance with the laws. And as I said before, we have to be in compliance just like any public school, be it the American school or the Discovery School, which uses the same international system as the American school. And they are basically the authority in the whole country when it comes to education. Before I get into the strengths and weaknesses of, or at least what I think are the strengths and weaknesses of the decree, I will just give a few basics. And as it says in the slide, for the most part, the decree resembles many of the state laws in the United States. Students must go to school until at least the second year of high school, which here, since there's a different system, means to be around 16 years of age. I would also like to mention the articles that most directly affect me as a teacher. Before I get to those articles, let's get to the basics. The state must provide more than one institutional option for their child to study. In the United States, you tend to be, if you want to go to public school, based into school districts or a jurisdiction. Now here, by law, they have to give you an option to go to any school that you can go to, at least that you have access to the transportation. In terms of the facilities, it's quite arbitrary. The state has to decide what adequate facilities are. Now in the city, they're not too bad, although there are in marginalized areas quite poor facilities. In rural areas, the facilities get even worse, and they are quite frankly in some very poor. Stakeholders in public schools, and in public schools it mostly means parents and students who are not a proprietary school of my own, but they should have transparent access to the decision making, whether it be curricular or financial, of the school they attend or send their child to. One of the strengths I think the decree has is that it states that institutions must recognize, respect, and stimulate different cultural and ethnic idiosyncrasies and identities, and linguistic differences and customs. Basically, it is written into law that the integration of cultural diversity and knowledge of all local cultures must be given educational access equally. Honduras is quite a diverse culture, and the East Coast, or the Caribbean coast, was colonized by the British, and of course the further inland colonized by the Spanish. For myself as a social studies teacher, and being multicultural and multilingual myself, I welcome this with open arms, and it gives me a good bit of content material in class. Weakness of decree. So my major qualm with this law and decree is basically that it is quite hard to fail a student here. Students are very highly protected by the Ministry of Education, which in theory and on paper is very good. But as I state here in this slide, an amendment was put into place in April of 2018 that states that every student must have a recuperation test if they fail a semester, some if they fail a partial. If they fail to get a 70% on this recuperation test, then they also have an opportunity to go to summer school and pass the class. In Honduras, anything below a 70 is failing. I know some states in the United States it's basically 60 and below. You can pass with a D. However, getting a 70% through the recuperation test and subsequently summer school, if the student does not pass, then it's really quite simple to pass a grade if you're really not motivated to get a good grade. Of course, we have good students that want to get something above a 90, but if you have students that are not really motivated, they can pretty much do nothing throughout the semester, sometimes disrupt class, and really bring down the level of a section. And then at the end of the year, they can still pass by taking one test, which is the recuperation test. As I say here, this amendment placed in April is actually an improvement, since before they could take 2 recoups, as they call it. You fail one, you take another one, and then even if they don't pass those 2, they could go to summer school. So it affects us as teachers because we have trouble incentivizing kids that don't have a problem with being mediocre students or not getting a good grade. The law is still in place. We talk about it all the time as professionals. And as of right now, we don't really see a way out or a light at the end of the tunnel with this, so we just have to deal with it as it goes. Thanks for your time. I'm looking forward to seeing the other videos and looking forward to having our virtual class tomorrow.